And Frank was somebody that I encountered in a ministry, and Frank had chronic back pain. And the pain that Frank was experiencing in his life actually made it harder for him to do his work. It made it difficult for him to get around and do some things. And so he decided that he'd come to the church to pray for God to heal his back. And after several attempts of trying to pray that God would heal Frank's back, it didn't seem to make any difference. It didn't seem to solve the core issue. And anyway, as some of us who've done prayer ministry training know, sometimes when you don't see breakthrough in a prayer that you've consistently prayed through, it could actually mean that God's timing is yet to play out. But it could also mean that whilst you're looking in this direction for God to answer a prayer, God's actually trying to answer the prayer over here. And this was the case with Frank, where Frank was so focused on his back issue that he thought that was what God was going to deliver in terms of a prayer for healing. And Frank was so focused on getting a delivery of an answer to prayer in prayer for healing of his back that he was missing what God was actually trying to do on the side. Now, it just so happened that someone from the prayer team shared with Frank this idea that maybe actually we need to get to a core issue, a deeper issue. And hear it clearly, I'm not saying that Frank needed to have more faith. It's just that there was maybe an underlying issue that Frank needed to deal with in order for it to be released and a whole lot of things to work in his life. And when Frank knew this in his mind, that actually there's some other issues that might be part of God solving this and bringing the healing that Frank was praying for, Frank started to look at the other areas of his life, and Frank noticed that when he was going to work, he had some resentment to somebody at work. He had some bitterness to that person at work, and it just so happened that Frank was having a fairly reasonable day with his chronic back issue, but he went to work and had quite a negative day with the resentment that was building up. And he noticed the next day that he had the chronic back pain had returned. And he started to realize that maybe the two were connected. So the next time he was with the prayer for healing ministry team, he shared with them that he had this underlying resentment. And instead of the team praying for the God to deliver a miraculous healing for the back, they prayed that Frank would be able to release the resentment and the bitterness that he felt towards his work colleague. And in doing that, it actually started over the coming weeks as he started to work on that, it actually started to release the chronic back pain, and Frank no longer has the chronic back pain, all because instead of just being like a dog at a bone for this issue, he started to realize that maybe there's something over here that God was trying to do. It's like sometimes when we're praying for God to deliver on a prayer of ours, we actually need to understand that there's a whole lot of things that work, and we need to understand all the things that are at work in order to understand how God might be trying to deliver breakthrough. While we're looking in one direction, God's trying to answer our prayer in another direction, and if we're not focused on the direction through which God is trying to deliver the answer to our prayer, we can actually think that God's not answering our prayer when really He actually is. And so I wonder whether there's something that you're praying for and you're determined to pray for it, a bit like Frank, and actually God's trying to answer it through another avenue. And if you were just to sort of step back a little bit and see that maybe God could be trying to answer a prayer through a slightly different avenue, you might actually see that God is trying to deliver the answer to your prayer. So I wonder whether there's something, maybe even a mental block, that if you could just unblock this mental part, then some part of the prayer for physical healing might actually flow in a greater way.